Well, there we go. Hello, friends. Happy Thursday. This is not a podcast. I am Leslie Wootton. If you joined us last week, we were talking the science of hospitality with Matt Jackson, a nuclear physicist who went over all kinds of things and compared what he was doing with radiation to how that aligned to hospitality. And we continue talking about the science of things through hospitality with yet another, if I dare say, a scientist, kind of inventor, and entrepreneur in the space, Scott Bartman. Scott, welcome to the show. Happy Thursday. How are you?
So good. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Are you okay being aligned with the science community, or are you more the hospitality community?
You know, I'd say we kind of do it all. We have, at this point, over 200 products. Really, I'd say I'm more of a problem solver than anything, because ultimately there's, all these different ways you can use a product, even if it's designed for one thing, kind of can work in all kinds of ways. So I'd say I'm really a problem solver. But yeah, always in the weeds with the science, and as a foodie, like to be there too.
Cool. No. So yeah, taking that science and putting it into the hospitality industry, that way you're that close to, well, for me, that close to the bar or that close to the kitchen that you get to see the innovations on the food side of it, which for us, 1033, that's more Paul. So I love seeing what he's doing with new wings and flavors and sauces because I get to be his guinea pig. And then I'm more on the HR, the people side of it, the networking side of it. So things like this, where I'm just super curious, how does that work with what we got going on? So I love to hear that. And I love to see how the hospitality industry is far more than just the hotels and restaurants, facilities that we're used to. That it's also, the third parties, the vendors, the how we're using different resources. Scott, can you walk us through a little bit about what Bartovation is, and make sure that I'm saying it right, and tell us your elevator pitch. Tell us what we would find if we went to your website.
Sure. So Bartovation is a manufacturer of over 200 different test strips. What's kind of cool about us is we have this brand, but we also do private label. We do custom developments. We're really big, and I get very excited by solving, like I said earlier, these complex problems. So we're developing tests for all these different applications, sometimes with a partner who already has a foot in that space, sometimes on our own based on our kind of either gut instinct or what people are telling us. But really, we make tests that solve problems. And they're everything from those sanitizer test strips that you need in your kitchen or bar that no one thinks about, no one even knows where they come from, but they're either there or you're getting dinged by the inspector, to some more sophisticated tests, like we have tests for free fatty acids for frying oil, or tests for very specific analytes of water quality. And we kind of do it all, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and there's so many different types of things that you could test. Educate me a little bit. Is it mostly liquids or oils, or what's the application for the use of a test? And what are some common tests that somebody would come to you for? And what are some that you have that you're thinking, why aren't more people getting this? This is actually the one that they need more often.
Sure. So I'd say sorry, I lost you there.
I got you. Keep going. You're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I'd say in terms of tests, we do a lot of different sanitizer tests. One of the cool things about our sanitizer tests is, for chlorine, for example, there's so many different applications. Like for a hospital or daycare, they have specific requirements to sanitize their contact surfaces. So we have a test designed for sanitizing and disinfecting contact surfaces based on those specific regulations with it marked on the bottle. We have 3 different tests for restaurant sanitizing chlorine, because the traditional ones just go from white to purple, but people said, oh, this isn't quite as clear as I'd like. I want to make sure I'm in the correct amount. or even for the inspectors, they're like, the inspectors want to see a more clear measurement of, say, 100. So we developed the test that'll go from, you know, orange to green to blue within that target range. Yeah, so you get that greater level of distinction. So if you're not just using it to go through the motions, and you're using it because you really do care about knowing, it's much easier to train. We also have a lot of tests that I'd say are very innovative and cost savings, but there's so much resistance to adoption just because when someone does something the same way forever, they're like, I don't need to test this. And we're like, yeah, but you'd save money. And a perfect example of that's, we developed these tests for free fatty acids and visual tests for oil quality monitoring. Essentially, in a frying, when frying fries or in a kitchen, most people are trained. You look at the oil, when you'll see when it goes bad, and then you throw it out. So
You'll see.
you'll see, and that's what they tell people on the line, and that's a
Right.
very subjective thing. So what either
Absolutely.
happens is you put out food that you taste that grease, that oil on, or you throw out your oil too early. It costs a lot of money to toss it, and it's also incredibly expensive now. So that's a product where we see the opportunity. And I pitched it actually to the Culinary Institute. They rolled it out in all of their kitchens in New York. As soon as they saw this, they're like, "Can you send these tomorrow?" Because they're like,
Yeah.
"This will save us a boatload of money in disposal." So it's a lot of times those inexpensive tests that solve problems and save people money. We're always like, "Why aren't people adopting this easier?" Because the sale's there, but until you see it with your eyes, you don't you don't do it. So that's one thing where we see a lot of opportunity, but also it's something where when we present it to restaurateurs, we're like, no, it really is this easy.
I love that. We Paul and I talk a little bit about that in our book Stove to Strategy. So forgive the little book plug here, but we talk about that where you say that somebody's looking at the oil and they just know it. And okay, maybe they're exactly right. They have been in the industry for a while. They have been here. Their gut instinct, let's say, is pretty close to spot on. Your test might prove it. But when they expand, when you look to train, when you look to give yourself a weekend off, when you look to make sure that somebody else is there, that knowledge that you've built up over time so that you can eyeball the oil or know when something is about right. And let's just say that they're exactly right. Let's just say that they are. The science is more accurate, but let's just say they are. How do you pass that off? And that's always our question, is how do you determine that? And something like this fits exactly that we're going to find the science behind it, the strategy behind it, to be able to say, okay, you've got a good guess, but you can't always be here. And how much time is it going to take to build up that innate instinct for somebody to be able to look at it and figure it out using a test, using some science behind it, so that you don't have to worry about gut instinct. You don't have to worry about somebody else's subjective visual on it, or somebody that at the end of the night says, you know what, I'm going to change it now because it's easier. And I can just say that it looked right. And that's where they're going to lose money, is that somebody's going to go, now's going to be easier, or worse, I'm going to say it's fine and let the next shift take care of it. Versus I tested it and it's my responsibility that when the test strip says this, I need to make this function. I need to complete this task, versus having that argument the next day of, hey, Leslie, why didn't you change the oil last night? It's like, oh, it looked fine to me. It's like, it's not about looking fine. Did you test it? What was the test? And so I think it's the accountability factor there, so that you don't have the subjectivity. And absolutely, my guess is that's where you can not only save money, but you can build consistency, you can scale, you can grow, you can hold people accountable, and you don't have to worry about what one person's vision of something is versus another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the fun things where somebody calls you, they say, hey, I need this. And while this would be great, I'd love to learn what they typically call and ask for, but also during that discovery, what are some of the common things that somebody calls and asks you for one thing, and it's actually something else that they're needing or also needing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say we work from a very scientific standpoint in that, you can tell me, I want to know if this specific molecule is in my water.
Okay.
We can make a test that does that. We might already have a test that does that. But depending on what level matters to you, the solution changes. That's why we have 8 different tests for chlorine, because depending on if you're looking for a residual or a sanitizer, or you're doing, disinfectation in a hospital, like the specific product you need changes. So we very much work within specs. So I'll say to you, at what level would you say this is a problem? At what point do you not care? And we'll try to dial in a solution. And a lot of times the answer is, never thought about that, or how would I even know? And there's obviously ways to overcome that. But I think, when we develop a test, the benchmarks are specific analytical decision points. And sometimes that's really hard to translate into a layman's term. But ultimately, until we understand that, I don't know if I can say to you, oh, this will work, or sure, we'll develop based on yes or no.
Yeah.
It's very important to kind of really understand what they're looking to test, because I can make a test that tests what you want, but if it's for 10 times your range, you're not going to be super happy with me in the at the end of the day.
I totally get that. Oftentimes we'll talk to clients that say, hey, I need this, or I need recruiting. And that's been one of our favorite stories, is when somebody says our recruiting's not working, or they say the magic word of nobody wants to work. And we're like, okay, something else is going on here, because that's not true. Everybody's looking for jobs right now. So it's going in, identifying what they're asking for, recruiting in our world, and then identifying, okay, why do you think you need 12 people to run this kitchen? Let's look at the efficiencies that you have in this kitchen. Why is your fryer over here? Let's look at this. And Paul and I have gone in and reorganized kitchens so that they're more efficient, so that you could manage 8 people in the kitchen. And hey, look at that. You already have them hired. So you don't have a recruiting problem. Well, you do if you keep this the way that it is and you refuse to change this, or you don't even notice that this is a problem. And so listening, like you said, is the problem solving. They come to you, and yes, I'm going to take an operator at their face value. They say that this is a problem. Fantastic. We can work for that, but let's explore a little bit. Let's see what's going on. And sometimes we can solve the problem with a different root cause analysis and being able to identify that. What's some examples in your world where somebody's come to you and said, hey, I need this, and you've been able to identify, you think you need that, let's actually go down this path and try to find something there? Or maybe something popped into your head. I'll give you a moment to think about that. Or maybe somebody came to you and said, hey, I need this, and it's not a product that you have, but you've able to develop a new product for them that's actually worked out.
Yeah, so all the time we're kind of doing those custom developments.
Okay.
One of the cool things about chemistry and science is there's a lot of variables you can play with to get your desired outcome. So I'd say, a lot of the time someone will come to us and say, oh, if this had one more color block, that would be great. Or, oh, we like this, but we want it to work for this pH range instead of that one. And sometimes it is as simple as tweaking the formulation, or even just modifying the color chart and the timing. But we do a ton of problem solving for people. And I think it's kind of one of those things where if nothing off the shelf works for someone and you are able to come up with a solution that's quick, elegant, and just does the job, they appreciate that and they remember. And that's someone who you've done right by, and they'll work with you indefinitely, because something small might not mean a lot to you, but to the customer and their use case, that might be a absolute deal breaker. So we do a lot of that.
I think those are the things that set one company apart from another. All things being equal, let's pretend for a moment, and we know it's not true, that everybody else's test strips are as good as yours. They're not, but let's just say that they are. what's going to set you apart from others is that customer service, coming back and being able to be a reliable source to step in and help somebody out. And my experience, you've proven that. You show up, and showing up is phenomenal. So anybody who's looking for the customer service behind something, and then let's be real, like, you've got these test strips that you're listening to the operators, you're making sure that they're better, they're exactly what they need, and you've got that customer service behind it. What are some examples of your engagement that you also provide behind your products to be able to show not just here's, it's in the mail, it's coming, it's easy to use, but what are you doing to make sure that your clients, your customers, the CIA know how to use the product, not just from a IKEA, here's how to do it, but how do they find the support and the need and the reason why behind everything?
Absolutely. So first off, one of the really important things to us is we want to give all the information we can to people. We put a lot of resource into writing descriptions, instructions, making sure everything's perfectly dialed in. But we also understand that there will be times where even when reading all the documentation, people are like, I don't know about this. We take a lot of pride in answering every single email we get. So when you send us an inquiry, we have someone qualified who can help you respond. I mean, another thing we do is on our website, for example, we have an intake form where we request a phone number.
Okay.
There's some questions we see where we're like, this person maybe could use a little more handholding. And that's not a slight on them. It's just the fact of the matter is sometimes you see someone going down a path or looking to do something more complicated, where having an expert on that product, call them, help them. We are the foremost experts in the products we put out. So when we can help someone bridge that gap and help them understand, that makes a huge difference. Usually when we call someone, sometimes it's within 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing they say is, I wasn't expecting anyone to answer my email. And we're on the phone with them and we're like, well, we're here. What can we do to help? Even our distributors, some of them have said, like, some suppliers now, you can't even get them on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But when they have a problem, they call us, and then on that first interaction, it's resolved. We can't control the mail. We
Sure.
can't control the tide or the weather, but we can control for the portions of the experience we're responsible for. So every product we put out, we stand behind, and we're proud to do it because we know it's of the quality where we're happy. But when issues happen, and sometimes, when you're testing chemicals, there can be so much other stuff going on under the hood that can impact it. So we'll even help people, how are you diluting this? What are you starting with? When did you make this? Because all these factors can impact it. Just because our test strip's not giving you the reading you'd expect doesn't mean our test strip's not working, but we want it to work for you and for what you're doing. So we really do try to hold their hand and help them because it makes a difference. And when you're in a pinch, especially in hospitality, when you're in a pinch, having someone to help makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I think operators are going to grow to appreciate that. It's the same with their technology or their point of sale or food vendors that they get a case of something in that's not quite right or it's the wrong size. You want to be able to call somebody that's going to try to fix it. Your point of sale goes out or a button's not working on a Friday night. You want to call somebody and say, hey, something's wrong. And my IT department, if you're lucky to have one, can't get through it. And the ability to be able to do that with test strips, with the science behind it, with inventory, with anything like that, and your team is answering those, not just answering the emails, but calling. I think that shows a dedication to the industry, to your clients, and I think that's exactly what people are looking for that goes beyond just the product that they're getting. They're not just trying to order something off of Amazon, and I know that we do that also, but at the end of the day, you want to know who are the people behind it and that you can contact them. And I love that about what you guys are doing. How are you making sure that your team is as knowledgeable about the product that you need them to be? And bonus question, How do you build that hospitality or that desire to help in with your team? How do you make sure that your team wants to help and has the knowledge to help?
Sure. I mean, I'd say every single person who's customer facing is an expert within their specific field. And we also have a lot of compartmentalization where, if you have a shipping inquiry, someone who is in logistics and shipping helps. If you have an issue with production timetables or want a product sooner, you have someone who can help you there. Not every single person who's working here is customer facing, and that's okay. Not every single person needs to interact with a customer, but every interaction with the customer has to either yield a positive outcome for them or next steps to remedy their issue. Um, so we even have distributors who are key distributors to us. And one time one of them called and was like, "Oh, you're picking up the phone now? Like, I just wanted someone on the helpline to help." And I'm like, "Well, you have me.
There
How
you
can I
go.
help?" Because we really want every single person to have a good experience. But also with those key distributors, I want to hold their hand and I want to help them with their issues. And I
Mhm.
want to have my ear close to the ground and hear about the opportunities, hear about the issues they're having. Because those are also opportunities, either for us to do better or for us to solve more problems for the industry. And ultimately, people in the industry will tell you what pains them,
Mhm.
and it's kind of up to you to listen and solve it. Um,
I love that. It's not just about, you know, connecting and giving somebody the right product. Um, that somebody gets that and they said, "Oh, use these test strips." And I think that that's going to back up that word of mouth recommendation when somebody says, "Not only use these, but talk to Scott." His team is going to be able to come through and answer your questions. Like they're not going to leave it at just the delivery of a product. And I think that's such a value nowadays. I talk a lot about AI and technology doing all these amazing things, and I love the AI and the technology space. But it is still the people behind it and how you're using it that is going to make it successful for your adoption of it. And I think the same thing goes with food products, test strips, technology, anything you're implementing. The people behind it matter, and I think that's one of the fantastic things about what you and your team are doing. Um,
thank you.
yeah, thank you. That's exactly who we want to speak to and who we want to showcase and put out there for people to see. Okay. The world that we don't see from the hotel restaurant operations, what are the things that we're missing? What's on the forefront of science and testing that you see coming that you might have a peek around the corner that we're not aware of yet? Or we're behind on what's coming up that we need to be aware of.
I mean, I think generally, water quality testing is going to be a huge need in the future. Um, I think it also presents an interesting opportunity for us because it is, I'd say, a fairly saturated market, but
Okay.
there's a big difference in quality. So we have some, even at the National Restaurant Association show, someone saw my test strip. He goes, "Yeah, but are these ever really accurate?" And I'm like, "Have you ever used one of mine?"
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference. Some of these companies just put out product and they say someone's going to dip it in. If they get a reaction, period, they'll be like, good enough. But the companies we work with, the institutions, um, the agricultural producers, the restaurants, they know when it works or doesn't, and they let it be known. So every
Mhm.
single product that comes off our line is something we want to stand behind. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's a big opportunity, and I think as as things grow and shift, there's more and more opportunity to do that. I'm also very curious to see how smartphone and camera enabled test strips develop with time, because we've been
Interesting.
seeing some of that on the personal healthcare side, but I am curious to see if that touches more and more into industry, and if that additional degree of precision might be helpful because a camera can see a lot more color than your or my eyes.
That's cool. Okay, so is that similar to some of the apps that are like identify this plant, that I can take a picture of a plant and it goes, that's something I've never heard of, and give me the genus and the species of what a plant is that my neighbor's growing? Is it similar to that I can take a picture of my oil or water or something and it can give me some insight to it?
So it would take a picture of like a strip, and then it could say like,
Okay,
oh, here's the level of this. So
got
there's
it.
still a physical component to it,
Got it. Okay,
but that might be an interesting frontier in the near
okay.
future.
I jumped a step. Okay. I'm giving
Not
away
yet,
your
but
future secrets. Okay.
no, I don't know about that, but
Okay. Cool. Well, how would somebody get a hold of you? What can they find on your website? Is there anything that they can go for free information, solicited information? How do they find you on LinkedIn? What are the best ways and reasons to get a hold of you and test out your product or get a conversation going?
absolutely. So our website is bartovation.com. Um, my LinkedIn is just Scott Bartman, which we can maybe link in the bottom.
Yeah.
Perfect. Um, and I can be reached just by the contact form on the site. You can say, I need Scott's help,
Mhm.
and I will see it, and I will get back to you within 24 hours. We also have a ton of different sanitizer tests and food service tests on our site, um, all of which are of a lot of use to the industry, to people. Even if you have an existing test on your shelf and you want to say, oh, I'd like a slightly more economical or a more precise version, you can
Okay.
contact us through the form and I will tell you your direct comp. More than happy to help there. Or if you have any questions or even want to have a scientific debate on the merits of our products or its use case in your application, please. Everything we do is backed by research, science, and data. And if you can't find information on what you're looking for on our site, I'm more than happy to discuss more. It's I'm really passionate about solving problems for industry, for business, and we've done a lot of that for different industries. I mean, even within the dairy industry recently, we rolled out products to screen dairy cows for subclinical diseases
Okay.
like mastitis, ketosis, and just measure their like somatic cell counts, all these other specific problems, which as a New Yorker, I never knew existed. But now that I do know and understand, um, it's great to be part of the solution. And it's great when you can help improve outcomes either for the farmers or their herd or industry as a whole. I really think people in the food industry work so hard. Um, so enabling them to make more informed decisions and ultimately make their lives a little bit easier with slightly better margins, um, I'm very happy to help.
I love that. So tomorrow I'm talking again to my scientist friend Matt Jackson, and I am guaranteed to bring some of this up, what you're doing with Bartovation, and talk to him a little bit about what's going in there. And I might either take you up on some of the science debates, which I don't know if I could be the person for it, but maybe speculation, I'll get you versus Matt in a science debate. But I think it won't be a debate. You guys would just agree on all the facts of the world. But I really appreciate you joining me, talking through it, helping educate myself. We'll help educate others and make sure that people have what they need so they don't have to worry on gut instinct of, is the oil ready or is the water safe? Let's find out. Let's learn that. So thank you, Scott. Really appreciate your time. This is not a podcast with Leslie Wootton. Thank you, Scott Bartman.
Thank you.
All right. Adios.